Hey, welcome to KUAM's Decision 2014. I'm Jess, Lujan, host for the show. I'd like to introduce the producer of the show, JC Kin Concepcion. I'd like to introduce my guest this morning, too. Very honored to have him in the studio. Incumbent Senator Tony Atta, Republican. How
Good
you
morning,
doing,
Jess.
Primo? How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you
There was
doing?
probably a miscommunication yesterday in the scheduling, but you're here today.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for accommodating.
Hey, anyway, let's go ahead and start off with tell the people again who you are, your number on the ballot, and what side of the ballot you're on, of course, and your platform for the upcoming 33rd Guam legislature.
Thank you, Jess. Half a day, everyone. Good morning. I'm Tony Atta. I'm the incumbent senator on the 32nd Guam legislature. I'm currently the minority leader. And this past term, I've been concentrating a lot on public safety issues. As you know, that earlier in the year, I've introduced and was able to successfully pass and have sign into law the carjacking, home invasion, castle doctrine bill, and the concealed carry firearms bill. So these things are very important to our people, to their safety, to their constitutional rights, and those were the issues that I pressed on this term, and I look forward to the will of the people serving into the 33rd Guam legislature. I'm number 3 on the Republican side of the ballot for the primary election.
Thank you. Going on that, let me go back to the things that you introduced. You introduced, of course, the Castle Doctrine, which was actually revised from its first introduction, right?
Exactly right.
And actually, in the midst of that, introduction of that, of course, nationwide there was the Trayvon Martin situation,
Right.
and things of that nature. So I think you were getting some flack as well for that as a result of that nationwide. But tell me the provisions of that, because again, to the average folk, yeah, it makes common sense. Of course, this is my castle. I defend myself. It's not like all of a sudden, if someone's going to intrude, you're just going to fire upon them. I don't think that's the genesis of the castle doctrine, right?
Oh, not at all, Jess. What it is saying that should somebody come into my home, that I don't have to retreat and hope for help will come on the way, when you need 911, they respond as quickly as they can, but every second counts, And what we did with the Castle Doctrine was saying that if someone comes into your home, that when they come in and your home, their intent is just not to take your personal possessions. Their intent is to hurt you.
Sure.
And you should have that right to protect yourself and your family at whatever cost it may be.
Now, let me ask you this as well, because there's things unfolding in front of our eyes again in regards to the demonstration and the recent shooting, of course, back in the United States of supposedly unarmed individual, right?
Right.
Now, when I'm looking at law enforcement and the big thing now, the question that a lot of the media are asking these law enforcement folks is in regards to the militarization of these police departments. And they're saying, well, these are equipment, these are surplus equipment that the military don't use, but can be used by the local law enforcement community. How can we avail ourselves to some of those equipment that the military has that that are no longer in use or no longer maybe vital for military operations, but can be useful for the civilian community and in particular law enforcement? How can we avail ourselves of that? Because I'm saying, wow, we definitely need a lot of those.
Yeah, and as you know, we currently have the DRMO that
Sure.
is local, and that's surplus military equipment
Sure.
that the military deems that they don't no longer need. And what happens is that I believe that DRMO law enforcement is given priority as to the equipment that they need and things like that. So if they see a Hummer that's fully armored down there, that they can avail themselves to that. It's just a matter of always being vigilant as to wanting to go down and see what they have that you can acquire for your department or agency.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking because we may be limited in some of the military equipment that are
Right.
here, but I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity for us to avail ourselves to surplus equipment, military that maybe are elsewhere, and maybe it's a matter of maybe getting it here, and I mean, I'm sure the community would love to be able to maybe to fund the cost of bringing things here, at least to better equip our law enforcement folks.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, and that's always something that we can always look into. And I believe
Sure.
that I know I went on the DRMO website once, and it does show that all the areas that DRMO has
Sure.
excess military surplus equipment, that you're able to put a bid on it and things like that. Now, how we can get our law enforcement to avail themselves to that without going through the bidding process, I think that would be something that we can look into.
Sure. And that was great. And like I'm saying, the militarization, I'm going, not that we want to militarize, it was, we need equipment. We need a lot
Right.
of equipment. And man, if other law enforcement agencies and throughout the nation that can avail themselves of that, and these are smaller police departments, imagine us as well. The only police department, we don't have bordering cities that we can be helped by the highway patrols or things of that nature. We have one police department.
That's right.
I mean, we can call them Guam Highway Patrol and all that, but we are one police department.
Exactly.
Yeah. But now, another thing that has come out recently, last week, of course, the Obama administration, based on a lawsuit in regards to citizenship and things of that nature, Obama finally, in his amicus brief, presented their side, their brief basically, that citizenship is something that we're giving to the territories by Congress is something that can be taken away. So it's not something that it solidifies basically our second-class citizenship here. Now, what are your thoughts on that? And again, as we strive for economic activity, more self-reliance on what we can do and where we're at in our proximity to Asia, but we have restrictions upon us that are bestowed upon us that maybe have long been I mean, we're useful maybe at one point, but are no longer useful as a private businessman. Right. You know all too well, all that. But what would you do in your thoughts again in getting exemption for those things? And the fact remains that we are second-class citizenship again, and we are not like, again, citizens who are naturalized or actually born and raised in the continental United States.
Well, that was an issue that blew me out of the water. I mean, I couldn't believe the amicus brief that the administration had submitted, and it just goes to show that the people are not familiar with the territories. The status of the territories, and I think that it needs to go back, and we really need to have our congressional representatives start voicing their concerns. I mean, we need all territory congressional representatives to say, wait a minute, so now you're calling us second-class citizens, I mean, if an illegal alien has more rights than territory citizens, and, that is of true concern, and I think that we really need to start voicing, especially with the governor and the senators, stand behind the congresswoman. And let's start protesting these things that they're saying, you are second-class citizens, because we're not. When I signed up to join the military and I served my country, they didn't ask me whether I was a first-class citizen or second-class citizen. Boy, they were so fast to take me in and sign me up, And now my citizenship is being questioned, whether I'm a first or second-class
Well, not questioned anymore. They're solidified.
Yeah, they solidified it,
Yeah.
So, those are the issues that we need to look into. And then even with, for example, with the shipping,
Sure.
you're talking
the
about
Jones Act, the
Jones
shipping
Act
and air and all that. Yeah, sure.
I was surprised when Senator McCain didn't turn around and refile for his what do you call it? His bill to eliminate the Jones Act.
Yeah.
So how he went from he wanted to eliminate the Jones Act to not even saying anything now, it makes me wonder. I mean, is there forces in play there that's saying, you know what,
No.
Let's not do this now. It's not good.
Horses are never a place. I don't know what you're talking about. You're dreaming. Anyway, because I was listening to, of course, the secretary, assistant secretary, Robert Works, right?
Yeah.
That yesterday, and then you guys had an opportunity, I think, to meet and listen to that as well. And it's great that we have a friend. It's great that we have a friend in high places, but he's not the decision maker. And yesterday, really, what hit home for me was when he said, when we're talking about the China visa waiver, and he's all in support, 100% support of us getting the exemption to get a China visa waiver. And what he said, this is good for the people of Guam. This is good for the economy of Guam. And that's great. I like that. But when we are just relying, again, on a close friend who has another friend who maybe has another friend that was elected by people over there. I mean, we elected you, okay? Whether you're a friend or foe, whatever, we elected you. And so as employees, we tell you what is good for Guam. And you're going to react not because we're a friend, but because it's good for that nation, good for our territory, good for our prosperity. Isn't this a wake up? Because we're hearing all these words, and this really should wake us up as to who we are and what we aren't.
Exactly.
What would you do, again, you go into the 33rd Global Legislature in pursuing that? Because we talked about, and I know the Commission on Decolonization said that 2015 was a doable plebiscite. Now, I don't know if that was changed. I seriously think that it's probably not at this point. The education process is not there. But I haven't read anything contrary to that. What would you do to help push that along? Now, if there are going to be court cases, and there are already court cases, let it be. It's going to be, regardless of what we do. But isn't this enough for us? That we've been told we're second-class citizens, we're relying on friends and things of that nature, who may have a friend, who may have a friend, who may have a cousin to do that. And that's not how to do things right by elected officials really work. Friendship works, collaboration works, negotiation works, but we're not at the table to negotiate.
We're not even allowed at the table. So first we gotta get invited to the table, and that's
how do we get invited?
And that's the biggest obstacle is how do we get invited to the table? And matter of fact, it's not how do we get invited. How do we put ourselves at the table?
We don't need an invite.
Yeah, we don't need an invite, especially when it deals with our status as an island, as a people. And how do we get onto that table to say, you know what? Stop making decisions for us, Let us make our decisions. And how can we get that voice, and how can we get those people to listen to what we're saying? And that's going to be the biggest challenge. These are the challenges. Yesterday we just, as a matter of fact, we were doing the budget on Commission on Decolonization. And, we were glad to see an increase in their budget. And that's for the educational material as to the political status of our island. So we're moving along, and I hope that we can continue this trend of moving forward and not be stagnant or moving backwards.
Let me ask you this, because I haven't seen the budget. I think I got a copy of it, but it's my bad not looking at it holistically. But does that include then for education process? I mean, I know they've put numbers, 300,000, million, and things like that. But we should probably start saying, well, this is what we can afford. Let's if the legislature can give us 100,000 or 200,000 this year for that, We'll take it from this to that, and then that way, that education process, we'll give it to the different statuses. This is what you get. Stretch it out, and we'll ask for it again in the next budget cycle. That's what they're doing.
That's exactly what they did.
Well,
as a matter of fact, it was a $96,000 increase.
Okay.
And in the committee report, it stated that they want to start doing the educational background and materials for the statuses.
Okay. So the 96,000 then will be divided by the three different statuses, and it will last for the year until they come up to it. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good, and I was hoping that that's what they would do, because we're just looking at this one magic number. If $1 million was $1 million, I seriously allow that all at one time you're going to give them $1 million in tough economic times. Recently, a couple weeks ago, the hospital situation. We all know the hospital. I mean, you're the minority leader. You know what's happening with that. Having to go to the other side to work things out. But recently, Administrator Verga had arrived from St. Luke, and was talking about a partnership, which is fantastic. Of course, the end result of people not making it goes to you, you know. But the fact remains as well is that it's great to be able to give the people the opportunity who won't be able to travel, who don't have the resources to be able to seek medical care elsewhere. It's great to be able to have that, to have our people be cared for here. But the fact remains here is that when they do come here, we would still have to pay. The non-paying people will still be allowed and still be non-paying.
Right.
The burden will be on the paying public. Okay,
Right.
so the burden again, because one is not paying, they'll say, Jess, Senator, JC, look, somebody's got to pay for it, and because you're paying, you're going to pay even more now.
Right.
So the burden will be on the paying community. What do we do? What do you plan to do, 33rd Guam Legislature, to holistically look at this? Is it time to put everything on the table and say, well, you know, maybe hospital service, maybe hospital care is maybe not something that Guam is really good at,
Yeah.
and maybe somebody can do it better, and maybe they can do it, and you know, yes, have this agreement with other hospitals and be able to do this, and they can do it a lot faster, a lot cheaper, and better than we do it. Are you willing to put everything on the table and look at all sides objectively and say, and come to an honest again, facing with the governor, with the government, whether or not we can continue to do this?
And you're absolutely right, Jess. You know, the hospital has many issues over the past, and I won't say past year, but past decades. You know, and it continues
ever since.
right, and it continues to be an issue. And you know, I don't want to take anything away from the doctors, the nurses,
Sure.
the employees of the hospital, because they do fabulous work. They work as hard as they can every day to meet the needs of our people. And you know, the issue of you know, we have that mandate that whoever walks through those doors must be serviced. You know, regardless of their ability to pay or not.
Sure.
But how is it that we can stop having our hospital, how do you say it, in a deficit, right? You know, how do we get these people to come in and pay? And 90% of the time, you're not going to be able to come in, have them come in and pay. I have listened to several people who have talked about, you know what, maybe it's time to privatize the hospital, you know, and keep all options on the table. You know, one thing, I think you always need to keep all options on the table, whether it's going to be government run, whether it's going to be privatized, whether it'll be a public-private partnership. But I think once you start closing the door on options, then you close the door on opportunities. And that's why we need to always...
You're a private businessman, you know. I mean, and you've served communities, you've helped community members who can't, you know, who can't do that. But if your business was basically, if you're non-pay, even if half of your clients were non-payers, I don't think Tony Ada will stay in business.
No, we won't. You know, we would have to close our doors.
Yeah.
And that's the issue now that's facing the hospital, because the deficit, the debt keeps increasing because of the non-paying clients of the hospital. So, you know, we really need to look at what are we going to do with the hospital, whether, you know, it'll be something to look at like I said, to privatize or go into a public-private partnership.
Now, lately here, I mean, actually just today, and I'm going to talk on something just very pressing at this point. The speaker's address today basically talked about the charter school and talked about the discrepancy. Now, you guys, I think it was yesterday or the day before that you were picketed by the charter school folks. They're saying, well, wait a minute, you only authorize, I think, $5,500, $5,500 per student, and they said, well, wait a minute, compared to the Department of Education students, they're at 6,200 something, whatever. So we want parity. We want to be the same. Speaker comes out and basically says, well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. You're not taking consideration that you're having your free rent at this point. 1.2 million has been allocated to you for that. So when you add that up based on the number of students, it brings you up to be, actually, you're getting more than the public school students. How are you going to go about, again, doing this? I mean, I applaud her efforts. I mean, this is great. I mean, you know, and it's pointing it out. But there still is a situation here where really, what is the true number per student that we're giving to DOE? What is that true number? What is that true number? Because it's a moving object at this point.
Yeah, and you're right. The charter school came down to, they wanted an increase in the per student, and the charter school has the charter school council.
Sure.
And the charter school council submitted to the legislature what the budget for the charter school will be at 5,500, and that's what the legislature went by. We work diligently to ensure that our public school students get the things that they need, and how as much as possible that we can address that issue. And you're right, that's a floating number. I mean, but when you look at the size of the school and the size of a different school, the numbers at 520 compared to 1,500, right?
And that was the number again when to justify the closure of FQ Sanchez. They said per student it like 7,000 per student or something, like based on the number of students
enrolled at the school.
Right. Yeah, enroll. So again, but really, when you look at it, that was one entity. But you're supposed to lump everybody into one category. So that's the thing. Again, how do we get a true number? There must be a formula for that. And again, the students are right in the sense that there are students of Guam. We want them to succeed. But also when we look at these numbers, they have to consider, because I think they're within that agreement they have not just the school year. They got one more year, the next school year. And then they have to transition out to another building. What I'm looking at this point, I go, if they increase their population, continue to increase their population, you can be very limited on areas or facilities you can look at in the private sector to be able to do that.
Exactly.
And I'm thinking they're going to come back and say, can we get an extension? Can we get an extension? How are you going to deal with that situation? Because GovGuam agencies, you still have agencies that need to move into a better building.
Yeah, and those are the things that I guess you can call her the CEO,
Sure.
Donna Dwiggins, needs to be vigilant and looking at and getting a facility for the charter school.
And you got to start now.
And you can't wait. The charter school, I believe it was last night I heard them on one of the stations that they're a public public students, they're just like a public education. When it came time to do an oversight, they didn't want to. They said they don't need to because we don't have oversight over them. So it's that
It's a pick and choose.
Yeah, well, we don't want you to have oversight for us, but we want we want you to give us our budget.
It's kind of like us when we fly to Hawaii and Hawaii to here. We're both domestic and international at the same time.
Exactly.
And we don't feed you in the back. You didn't pay enough. But
so and those are the things that the CEO needs to look at and start working now. Not wait for us to look for it for them.
Yeah.
We had the bill introduced and passed into law that allows the charter schools, and now that the charter school is open, now they need to come out and start doing their part to keep moving and keep improving the facilities that they currently have and currently will need in the future.
And likewise, again, you have this school year, you have one more school year if I'm right in regards to the lease, they have 3 years. Okay,
right.
So they've completed their first year. This is their second. They have one more school year after this, and if really you're going to find a building or you're going to build a building.
One thing going to do it.
And if you're going to continue to increase your student population, that means you're going to have a big facility at this point. And they had a hard time finding a building even prior to this. I'm saying if you have a bigger student population, you're going to even have a harder time finding a facility.
Right.
And I'm thinking that you guys, the legislature, the 33rd, 34th Guam legislature is going, 33rd and 34th. You're going to be revisit this again.
Yeah.
You're going to be picking it again.
Yeah, definitely. It's very true.
The DOE's budget. One of the things, even last night, Superintendent Fernandez come out. He says, "Hey, legislature's got to help us out. We could do this. Our power bill is just enormous. We can't afford it anymore."
Right.
Basically, he came out. As a matter of fact, I think that 4 new schools are going to be. They're going to have solar panels. Okay, the power bill at DOE is about $1 million a month, 12 million a year.
Right.
Okay, now they're going to save a lot of money. I'm hoping down the line here that they're going to do all that. And maybe even if it's $1 million a year, okay, as opposed to $1 million a month, that that will go a long ways to putting that money into the classroom. GPA, on the other hand, slow your roll. Wait a minute, because once you do that, we're gonna have to charge everybody else. As a businessman, when times are slow, you got to adjust operational costs, right? You don't keep everything the same up here and expect, to eat the same food all the time. You have to adjust everything, the way you live, operational costs, and all that. What efforts, what you do in the third Guam legislature to tell GPA says, hey, you have to holistically look at it. Don't just say, hey, look, Jess and Keen have to pay for this now, right? But you have to look at yourselves too and how to bring this down, because not just the paying customers have to be burdened with this, but you also have to adjust your operational costs. And I know you know this as a businessman.
Yeah, that's true. Just the operational costs at GPA, and you're right, they're going to have to do a lot of adjustment. But also, at the schools, I know they do what they can, but I think the
more can still be done.
More can still be done. The minute school gets off, let's turn off all the air conditioners. There's no need to run the air conditioners 24/7, 7 days a week, and especially when there's no one in the classrooms. There's a lot of ways to do power conservation, but I think what they need to do is be very vigilant at it. Be stern at it, because I think we still have that provision in the bill that whatever cost savings that the principals do at their school, that they can get back for their classrooms. And I think that's something to continue to look at. And how can these principals actually say, let's start being vigilant at what we're doing. Let's start, get together with the faculty, the staff, the teachers, and say, if you don't need 2 air conditioners to be running during the day, turn one off. And start looking at things that way. And with GPA, they're going to have to start trimming their costs too, so that they don't have to put the burdens again back on the taxpayer or back on the consumers to keep raising our utility rates. And it's not power is not it's not a luxury, it's a necessity.
Well, it's going to be a luxury item at this point.
Yeah, but
the way the rate is going,
it's really a necessity to so people can have lights at night, be able to cook, be able to especially with these people with medical conditions, keep their oxygens flowing, keep their
sure. And now let me ask you this: of course, property taxes, right? Property taxes. We have a lot of people that definitely pay on time. People that are not quite making it, they're scheduling payments, have payment schedules and everything. But there are also people who are delinquent in property taxes, both private citizens as well as commercial entities, right? Businesses. Something's got to be done. I mean, everybody needs to pay their taxes, whether you're a private individual or a company. The governor recently has said that they're going to probably move to enforcing delinquent taxes probably on the commercial entity, maybe move to foreclosure or things of that nature. Your thoughts on that? And because something's got to be done to delinquent taxes, both on the private sector as well as or private individuals as well as in company. Right. You as an individual, you pay your taxes, and as a company, so you're paying twice.
Right. And I think just it has to be equal across the board, whether you're an individual or you're a company. You owe taxes, you need to pay the property taxes. If a company's property can get levied on for non-payment, then so should an individual. When you don't pay your property taxes, especially as low as our property taxes here are on Guam.
Sure.
And I think we have one of the lowest property taxes in the nation. And I think that we need to reevaluate on how they're if a person can't because they're given 2 increments, right? Your first payment and your second payment. If an individual needs to do it quarterly, then let's do it quarterly. But we need to keep them paying, because we can't discriminate just because a company didn't pay their property tax. We're going to levy them, and an individual didn't pay it. We're not going to levy. We need to be equal across the board, whether you're a company or whether you're an individual. Because if the company's paying their property taxes and the individual's not, then what does that say to the company? You know,
Sure.
it just has to be equal across the
Sure.
board.
Let me ask you this question. Military buildup. It started this 2006 at least. Now serving the legislature, it started here. Here we are now. That number has decreased from 8,000, 10,000 out to about 4 or 5,000. We're looking at. Poggett was the preferred site. It's still not off the table, but now Retidian looks like the preferred site. Now, just the other day, one of the family of one of the landowners in Retidian had called in here and expressed the fact, and I asked, I said, well, I need clarification of this because it's been presented that you guys have been paid twice. Have you guys been paid? And this lady said, she says, no, we haven't been paid. As a matter of fact, my grandfather never accepted the money. One family member went to cash a check that was given to them, only to find out when they went to cash the check that the federal government had insufficient funds. So, to me, for it to move on, okay, rather than preferred site versus this, because if in fact that's not true, I think we have to get down to really who owns the property. If this was a taking, if this was a federal government taking without just compensation, then it's an illegal taking.
Right.
So I think before we even move on to maybe even the bigger picture is whether or not this is in their footprint, we have to determine whether or not these families were compensated, and if they were, can we see the documents of the compensation? Because there might be individuals he didn't know, and maybe down the line they took some whatever.
Right.
But I think first and foremost, because it is illegal to have a taking without just compensation. So you have family members saying, we weren't compensated. One family member went to cash the check from the federal government only to be told insufficient funds. So if you have insufficient funds, what happens? The transaction is no good.
Right.
So your thoughts on that and Retidian, because I think before we even say we need to do this, we need to see who really owns this and whether or not a taking prior to this was a legal taking.
Yeah. And I think you just answered the question right there. Research has to be done. Research has to be done as to the compensation, show the what they call it, the who was paid, how it was paid, and
Show me.
One thing about the federal government, they're very good at keeping records. So these records they should always have. That yes, they were paid. There's 3 copies right there that somebody signed for a check, and right here's 3 copies.
And you signed for it too.
And here's 3 copies that the check was cashed.
There we go.
And it shouldn't be so difficult.
Sure.
I mean, I can go back to my military service record, and all I have to do is request it from the Department of the Army, and they'll have 5 copies of it. So
they have the record every time you visit the dispensary too.
That's right. Those are things that it shouldn't even be an issue, and that
That's
should
right.
be easily taken care of if everything was done legally.
That's right. Anyway, hey, I appreciate you coming in here, and
Thank you, Jess.
and your colleague Frank Ogden Jr. I don't know what happened to him this morning, but anyway, hey, you and I got to talk. But again, tell the people of Guam again your name. Not that they don't already know. Okay, they've known you since before you were a legislator. Again, your name, side of the ballot, your number, and should the people of Guam decide to keep you again in the third Guam legislature, what will be one of the first things that you're going to do?
Thank you. Thank you, Jess. Afre Guam, I'm Tony Atta. I'm number 3 on the Republican side of the primary ballot. I look forward to working into the 33rd Guam legislature should I be reelected and continue to press issues, those issues that are priority to our people. Priorities do change, and we hope that we be able to address those issues one priority at a time.
Okay, man. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Brito. He's my primo, very close primo, for being here this morning. You can watch a broadcast of this tonight on local channel 2, 7:30, of course. It'll also be on the KUAM YouTube channel. That should be up by 10:30, 11 o'clock this morning. It will be highlighted on KUAM primetime, and likewise this rebroadcast tomorrow at 2 p.m. KUAM TBA. Tomorrow my in-studio guest, and it looks like we're winding up on the senatorial candidates. Tomorrow my in-studio guest will be incumbent Senator Chris Duenas, will be my in-studio guest. Likewise, senatorial candidate Narissa Underwood will be my studio guest tomorrow morning, and it's looking like we're winding down. I think that's it for the senatorial candidates. But anyway, again, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. We'll talk to you again tomorrow morning.